The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
To Lincoln, Alabama, the track known as Talladega, the Superspeedway that just puts everything else in its shadow. Hello, Rachel Whiteford and Cisco Scaramuza. Tonight we'll be joined by Evan Pasoko a little bit later, but we are here now with the Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV and iRacing Live for round number 6. And the first of the Crown Jewel events, this is the Stars Fell on Alabama 250 tonight. Rather than our timed events we've had all season long, tonight we'll be running for 94 laps. End of stage 1 will still be on lap 50 at this 2.666 mile Superspeedway. It's going to be an explosive race tonight as the cars head out on track for qualifying. We'll start to see those positions coming up on your screen very shortly. We can take a quick look at the points and how they stand so far. As we have it, right now, our winners so far into the chase, locked in, of course, Jason Altmans, who's actually borderline based on race attendance. Brandon Cruz, Monsivice, Brandon Chaburko, Chris Passini, and Seth the Merchant, all locked in so far. Those are your race winners as they stand. Playoff pictures have Chris Passini at the top of that. Guys who are points in at the moment, Mark Jorgensen Jr. tied with Rod Flagg on, tied with Harry Tiller, I believe, on points at 408 on non-winners. Behind them, Rod Flagg, Daniel Holloway, Rodney Wofford, Ray Ritnow second, and Paul Servant. So a lot to play for still. Travis Brown, Gary Champion, and Scott Warren just outside that cutoff line in 13th through 15th place in your points. Round 6, though, still a lot to play for in this race, as we have, I believe, remaining 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 races before the end of your regular race season, when playoffs round 1 will start, before the final round of 3 races after that, and we'll crown a champion in this season 15 of the Superspeedway Cup Series. And well, Cisco, I'll bring you in at this point right now in a second. He's topping out the timings at the moment, 51.833 on the timing. Him, Rodney Wofford, and Paul Servant looking very fast tonight.
Yeah, and for those guys, I mean, it's not really that uncharacteristic to see the guys who are up towards the front of your qualifying grid right now to be up there. I mean, we talked about Paul Servant. It was kind of odd to see him not in the top 5 when it came to qualifying. Ray Ritnour, especially as of late, has had some stellar qualifying time, so he's been up front a lot this past season, so doing a great job are both of those guys. And as a result, you know, this field has started to become very kind of competitive in terms of where they start, because you see these guys who qualify really well, but they just haven't had the luck they've needed to stay up front, Rachel. And at that point, it's up to the drivers. Well, what am I missing from that then? Is it the strategy? Is it having teammates that can keep me up front? What do I need to do to go out and win? A couple of these guys have wins this season, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to have a better shot. We've seen guys run up front all season who already have a win, guys like Brandon Monsivice, guys like Seth the Merchant, and guys like Mark Jorgensen Jr. are kind of sitting there going, what do I got to do? Because I don't get a chance to take it easy here. These guys aren't going to take it easy on me. I have to go out there and win, despite the fact when you would think, oh, they're just going to take it easy because they have a win. No, that's not how this series goes. These drivers want to win every week.
They do, of course, but like, Jason Altman's still not here again this week. And also, guy who's tied for number 1 in the points outside of the winners, Jorgensen Jr., also not here this week, so that could be tricky. But Cisco, as the cars line up on the starting line and get ready for the pace lap, we'll go through your starting grid.
Yeah, starting grid. Starting on the pole is going to be the number 87 of Ray Rittenauer, the second with a time of 51.833 seconds. Going to be Rodney Wofford in that number 7 of 51.845. Then behind them, row number 2, Paul Servant in the number 3. Nice to see him back starting up front. Fourth is going to be Chris Bassini, and rounding out your top 5, Rod Flagg in the Pontiac Grand Prix.
Outside of the third row will be Scott Warren. Fourth row, Josh Ball even, not Scott, I don't know where I got that from. Harry Tiller in 8th place, Ramon Evans and Andrew Berger in 9th and 10th.
11th place going to go to Gary Champion, the number 18. Glenn Hedrick's going to start from that 12th position. 13th going to go to Justin Levine in the number 14. Spencer Preet is going to start 14th, and 15th going to go to Alex Halinar.
Behind Alex is Jimmy Coleman in the 16th spot with Dan Harrington, Tanner Mann, Brandon Cruz Monsivice, a good performer recently, and Andy Kessler, the 2 LSR teammates back there in 19th and 20th. Behind them, Cisco, who've we got?
Michael Cozy Jr. starting 21st. Travis Brown starting 22nd. He's got one of those I-5 bonus banners above his window, so keep an eye on that 01. 26 at Daniel Holloway's going to start 23rd. 24th going to go to that 52, I should say, of McCarrick, I believe. 23rd or 25th going to go to Dwayne Cooper. 26th to Brandon Chaburko, and he's the first car not to take a time. Everyone behind him, Dana Osborne, Larry Camp, and then Mike Thiel round out your 29 car field here from the high banks at Talladega Superspeedway. And Rachel, what do we got here at Talladega?
Well, we certainly do. Talladega, a fantastic track here, of course, for these guys. And, well, the banking is pretty impressive here. Turns 1 and 2, it's 33 degrees of banking. 3 and 4, well, that varies. It's 32.4, 32.5. Tri-oval, 16.5 degrees of banking. The backstretch banked at only 3 degrees. That big super stretch backstretch back there. And as the field moves off, let's not forget, guys, not only is there the I-5 bonus of $5 for win if no one claims it, that will add up to the next race, but there is the special $25 prize for today's race based on this being a crown jewel event. Not a lot of these in the series, but the driver who comes home today in victory lane will walk away with a bit of cash in their pocket, so always a great incentive for racing. As the field now heads out to turn number 2, down the backstretch here at Talladega, a site of so many wrecked race cars. I'm sure they're getting a good look at this to remember which way is forwards, but they may have to remember that at some point during this race. But Cisco, as they're about to head towards turn 3 and 4, again, qualifying's been interesting this week. We've got some new faces up towards the front of qualifying. Could make this first stage interesting.
Yeah, and for these guys, it's going to be a case of, do they want to get up there and try and go for those stage points, or are they going to try and bring home that $25? I think I know which one's going to be, Rachel, but something to note, you mentioned the I-5 bonus on top of that $25 purse tonight. Some guys could make some very nice paydays if they can pull it off here, but that's a lot they're going to have to pull off here. And speaking of getting off the racetrack, the Ford Mustang pace car getting ready to do the same. So Rachel, well, it's all you. Take us to the green.
It certainly is. And that pace car will take the long left-hand turn down pit road in just a few moments' time, leaving the field under the command of Ray Rittenauer second here. Himself and Rodney Wofford on that front row will lead your field to the green flag, which unusually, of course, Talladega is on the run to turn number 1. The green flag will come late, of course, unlike Daytona, where it's very early and the green flag will fly. We're racing here at Talladega. Into turn number 1, great start by the outside line. Rodney Wofford there with a huge run. Chris Bassini pushing him hard from behind. The 76 of Warren also getting in there. Harry Tiller on the high side and Andrew Berger. Strong lineup of cars on your outside line, but of course the inside, Cisco, just a little stronger earlier on. They get the good run on the low side. Ray Rittenauer second may hold on to this one, but it's a big push with Piscini there in the 1.
And Rodney Wofford up on the top side doing an excellent job with that push from Piscini. Now down on the inside, Paul Servant trying to make it work in the Oreo number 3. And then Rod Flagg in that 10 is up there with a little bit of help from Josh Ball in the 48. The inside line going to prevail this time as they head through the tri-oval. And it looks like Ray Rittenauer the second is going to be able to lead that first lap of the race here. He's got a really good thing going on the bottom side right now, Rachel. And if those guys stay with him as another car drops to the inside, the 24, Andrew Berger. And that's going to make that inside even more potent. Only 4 guys up on the top side. Wofford, Piscini, Warren, and Harry Tiller.
It looks like the early scramble to find a hold on the bottom side and get yourself down and ride for a while here. So I'm sure we'll see this top line just filter out as things go. For those of you wondering where your fan favorite Brandon Chaburko is, didn't qualify. First of your non-qualifiers back in the 26th spot is where he started. Currently running in at 24th place. Slowly making his way forward, just having a bit of fun today as he always tends to do in these races. I'm sure by no time he'll be up at the front of the race. Hello to everyone watching at home, of course. Welcome, as always, to this LSRTV broadcast. We love having you guys here as contact. Coming across the start-finish line, car spin to the infield. And Cisco will get a quick look back. Glenn Hedrick and Halinar involved in that one. We will see what has happened. Alex Halinar. Oh no, the 21. Hedrick, he just lost his car.
Yeah, 21-64 made contact. We got the replay up on screen at the moment. See Hedrick up in that second line. We come into the tri-oval, and Rachel, we always have to talk about it because it's basically the 5th corner on this 4-corner oval. And in this case, Halinar goes a little bit on the apron, and it looks like the 21 just got loose. Not sure what happened there, but either way, possible connection issues for the 21 and the 64. So Halinar not looking good. Only 2-car incident, though, so they're not going to throw the yellow. No yellow from the tower, and that means those two stuck in the back. Meanwhile, battle for the lead. Ray Rittenauer on the inside trying to defend from a very hungry Rodney Wofford's got a push up on that top side from his DHI teammate Chris Piscini in the 1.
He does. Piscini pushing hard, but it's not going to compete. There's only 3 of them on the top side, so not quite enough at this stage. They're going to have to see if they can reform this and move forwards once again. As right now, Wofford looking strong. Servant as well behind him, that 3-car. The Oreos machine doing what he has to do here. Rod Flagg behind him in the 10. Doing absolutely everything right. The 48, though, of Josh Ball up here, getting himself involved there. The Arrow car just ahead there of Andrew Berger. Some very familiar names to this series up here at the front. Some older names, some newer names, and some names that have not won in a while, Cisco, but these guys could be in a good position, but things are getting a little hairy as we run fast lap 5. And you mentioned last time by that tri-oval. 5th corner, yes. And of course, these cars, they're very well stuck to the track in the big corners, the big banked 3-story high corners. 33 degrees of banking, that's a lot. You half that, you've got the tri-oval. 16 degrees only. Doesn't seem like a big difference, but these cars don't quite feel quite as seated when they're there.
No, they don't, and part of that just comes down to the aero package these guys are running. It's just the car isn't that stable, especially when you get into a big pack and starts to jostle around. It's just off-center enough where the weight shifts, and it just kind of gets a little bit loose, I guess is the best way to say it. It's kind of a loose tendency as you see Paul Servant on the outside. Excellent run from the 7 to Wofford, and he's going to take back the lead for the moment. Paul Servant back to the front of your field. He was up there earlier on, but was stuck behind Ray Rittenauer. Now he drops in front of the 87, the Racing Warehouse Chevrolet. So the Oreo Chevrolet back up front, and now Ron Flagg down. 3rd car still on that inside, but hasn't really been able to go anywhere. So the outside line is the passing lane right now, Rachel, but you have to have one heck of a run if you want to make it happen.
Absolutely. You'll see a lot of guys on that low side moving themselves up as this race progresses in front of a good head of steam for the outside line. They'll use that as an elevator to get to the front, but they need a lot of help to do that. Look at this outline line here, really forming up now as it looks to be Wofford, Piscini, and we've got behind them 24, 76, and the 69 cars all wanting to go forwards here. 72 car back there. Spencer Preet, he's getting a good shove, but look at this big run here by Wofford and Piscini at the front. This could be a launch down the backstretch as they'll be leading coming out of 2. Great head of steam here. This is going to be an easy pass by the looks of things for the 7 and the 1, I think.
Yeah, 7 doing a great job, and down to the inside goes Rodney Wofford, so he's got that first place position thanks to help from the teammate of Chris Bassini. Meanwhile, up on the top side, you got Berger up there. You see the orange banner, another one of your I-5 drivers out here tonight, and Scott Warren right behind him, who's been kind of loyal up on that top side, just hasn't had a whole lot of help. The car that was directly behind him, Harry Tiller, is kind of falling off the back end. He's picked up, it looks like the 83 of Ramon Evans. So now the 83 jumping to the top side. And as for that one car, basically no one out there to really help him unless Wofford wants to kind of pull him along. I'm not sure that's the game plan for the 7 right now.
Very much is, and well, they're going to get themselves underway here and make sure they're going in the right direction. Lap number 8 of 94 tonight, and let's not forget, folks, 55% fuel tanks on these cars. We're looking at about 24 laps at this stage, Cisco, so right now we're approaching that halfway point of the fuel run, and things are going well, other than that one crash for Hallinar and Hedrick at the rear of your field now. There's 2 who had a wreck, now having to work together to stay up to speed.
Yeah, and they've done a great job thus far, Rachel, but you have to remember the strategy is going to be a bit easier for these guys because, well, you're not counting down on a clock anymore. You can look at the lap counter. You know when the two main events in tonight's race are going to happen. You know when stage 1's going to end at lap number 50, and you know when the checkered flag's going to fly. So at this point, it allows these guys, you can back off, and I think it kind of grew a little bit of patience in these guys because now they know it's not a question of when the clock runs out, it's now a question of when do we get there. So they can be a little bit more patient, they can plan it out a little bit better, and I think it's starting to already work for these guys 8 laps in. Not even really, apart from the Hallinar and 21 incidents, which I wouldn't even stack up as that being that aggressive, not really dicing it up as much as we usually see.
No, they're not. They're racing very calmly tonight, of course. You've got to be there at the end to win it, so these guys are all making sure they get to that end. Of course, they do have backup cars on the trailers they can go to should they have a major crash, but you only have one, Cisco, and you don't want to use it too soon in these races. We've seen it all too often, especially last week at Daytona 07. Too many guys having to use those early and being out of the race later on.
And I mean, we're only a 9th into the race, Rachel. I really don't think they want to be dragging out those backup cars that early. Something to note, though, I am starting to notice a certain 22 car has made his way up into the top 20. Chaburko was weaving around a little bit, so just keep an eye on that 22. He's sitting down there on the bottom right now, but taking it nice and easy behind Andy Kessler, those two in channel together, so they'll be talking, trying to figure out that strategy. Meanwhile, battle for the lead, Chris Bassini going to get it at the line thanks to help from Andrew Berger up on that top side, and now Josh Ball looking to maybe go with those guys, but it's not going to matter because Bassini drops in front of his teammate, so it works out. The 1 and 7 back together, and now Berger leads that top side.
He does indeed. Berger goes towards the front now as Bassini and Wofford on the low side have got your race lead. And we'll see Josh Ball and Andrew Berger here go forwards, but into 3 they will come. Didn't have the head of steam they needed down the backstretch here, but they will continue nonetheless. We'll have a quick check on our Brandon Chaburko watch for the race, and, well, 26th is where he started, and he's up to 17th place already. In fact, he's still moving forwards here, so the Chubbs is going forwards, and you know, we said it's been quiet so far, Cisco. I don't think as he gets towards the front of this race, it's going to stay quiet for long.
We'll see. We'll see. Either way, I think he's making his way up there, so we'll keep an eye on him. If he starts going 3 wide, we'll let you know, because we'll probably be losing our mind if he's doing that. And speaking of which, it looks like he was thinking about doing it there, but not going to happen. Meanwhile, Berger up front, making that outside line work very well, thanks to help from, well, I guess they might look like teammates because it's the 24 and the 48, but not really sure. I think they are actually teammates, Josh Ball and Andrew Berger. Yes, they are. So those guys working together right now on the radios, trying to figure it all out, and they're going to get a little bit of a lead as they head through the tri-oval right now. Andrew Berger doing a great job dragging the brake, getting back to that 48 so Ball can push him to the front. New leader at the line is Andrew Berger in the DuPont Chevrolet. Excellent job there from the veteran. And from Josh Ball, the former series champion, I might add. He's been gone for a while. He actually got parked for a while, but now he's back and looking to see if he can break into this chase picture here.
He really, really is, and we'll see him progress forwards in this one. What can he do? Can he get himself clear of Passini on the low side and make some progress here? Lap number 13. So looking at really about 10, 11 laps left on this fuel run. Of course, if things do run green, we get into a rather interesting situation. Of course, Cisco, they will not make it to the end of stage 1 on one fuel stop. They will not make it 25 laps on a tank. So that means they have to make some sort of splash and dash at some point if they plan to do so. Do you want to short fuel on this run and make a slightly longer run on your second build speed? Or do you just make it as long as you possibly can go and then pit? Things will break up, of course, after green flag stops. There's things snaking around here as we get a good run here. Berger going to have another run towards the front with Josh Ball as they're going to try and make some momentum into turn number 3 on the outside line there. Not enough help for them, though. Too many cars sitting too far back. Cheburko up to 13th here. Steadily climbing. Now he's joined that lead pack of the race. In fact, our lead pack here is the top 20 cars, or just more than that, actually. 77, Michael Koza Jr., last car in your lead group, back in 20th place. The two cars that crashed early on in this race, Glenn Hedrick and Alex Hamanar, just up ahead there on the outside, Cisco. This is what it's cost them, a full lap.
Yeah, and to fall all the way back this early is not good, as Hedrick's got to get very much out of the way there. They're going to go 3 wide here, so just to get a picture, that's how fast, that's the difference between the 76. You just saw him blow by the 64 of Hallinar and the 21 of Hedrick. They're ready to see the 5 go by Tanner Mann, the 01 Travis Brown. That's the difference draft can make now. If you're the 21, the 64, they're doing what they should be, which is they're single file, and they're hoping to hook onto the back end of this pack here. You see the 98 of Andy Kessler. That's where exactly they want to be, because if they can hold on to that draft, it looks like both have used their backup car, or the damage isn't significant enough to really slow them down, Rachel. So the 64, the 21 doing exactly what they want to. If they can tag onto the back of Andy Kessler, that's going to be the perfect spot for them to be able to stay in this lead pack, because as it sits right now, it's going to be a battle between those two for who the lucky dog's going to be.
It absolutely is going to be a battle between them for the front of this one, as Cheburko starting to make those aggressive moves here as he breaks himself into that top 10, getting ahead of Harry Tiller. A little bit of a rivalry has been forming between those two drivers, and right now Tiller is riding Cheburko's backside like a fairground pony here as he tips 2 cars out to the inside line, and it is the 83 car gets dumped out of the line. That was Ramon Evans, gets pushed down by Cheburko. The 10 goes up and slams down into the inside barrier hard. Red flag down and out, but we'll see no yellow flag. 2 victims there have opened things up a little bit, and this has really broken up your field. Big problems there.
Yeah, and we'll get a second look at it here, Rachel, to see what happened. And it was the 69 right on the rear bumper of the 22, and Cheburko has nowhere to go. Eventually turns the 83 of Ramon Evans, who just glancing blows Rod Flag. That was about an inch that it just took the air off his spoiler, and that's all it took. Rod Flag going around and pounds the safer barrier down on the inside. So the 10 took a lot of damage there. The 83 lost position, but it could have been a whole lot worse for Ramon Evans. Great save by him, able to hold on to that car and keep going. And you mentioned it broke up the lead pack. We return to your live picture now, because look at it. There's nobody left out there. You got 4 or 5 cars up in that top side, and then you see the real big pack begin with Scott Warren. Those guys will accordion together, and it looks like Ball's actually dropping back to see if he can pull those guys back up into that pack, because I sense that his teammate Brandon Cheburko is looking to get up front.
Certainly will be at this stage, but you are right there, of course, Cisco. That was something that really was caused by Harry Tiller back there in that position behind Cheburko. Cheburko could not ease off to give a gap to the 83 because he was being pushed so hard. Well, the gap, of course, between Evans and Cheburko is not something Tiller could see, so one of those communication issues that sometimes arises, and new driver, veteran driver, is always going to be a bit of that, as I believe we are now inviting Evan Pasoko, your regular series lead, back to the booth here on LSRTV. Evan, welcome back.
We do have the mic plugged in, and I got here just in time to see the issues there with Rod Flag, who is falling a lap down. He's able to get the Valvoline Grand Prix, I guess he calls it, back out onto the racetrack, but that's going to drop him off at the lead lap, so he'll join Glenn Hedrick and Alex Halidar as the drivers who run one lap down. And kind of right into what you two were talking about, Rachel, that really broke up the 2x2 up front. It's basically single file, top to bottom now, as we work lap number 19. There is some 3 wide at the very back of this. It's for 17th, 16th, and 15th position. Everybody else pitting, and that's why they were single file. Drivers headed down. Looks like Paul Servant leads the first group.
So they are indeed, and they'll come down pit road. We'll see what they can do. Will it be 2 tires, 4 tires? We know they come down here for Sunoco race fuel, but will it be 2 or 4 of your Goodyear Eagle race tires?
I think Travis Brown in the 01 completely overshot the entrance to the pit lane. He may have made contact with Ray Ritnow, we're not sure, but the 01 machine was out at the grass, so he's going to have at least an unsafe pit entry penalty. If not, if he was speeding as well at the cone, which I think he was, means that he's got about 30 seconds of penalties to deal with on the pit lane. And under green flag conditions, that's more than half a lap here, but more importantly, it means he's going to be on the racetrack by himself. He may be lapped by the time we come to the end of the stage. Race leaders at a turn 4 once again. More drivers coming down. Scott Warren, Harry Tiller, some of the names we've been talking about. Dan Harrington, Spencer Preet, and Andy Kessler in this time.
Really is, and we'll see what they can do this time by as they come down pit road for their service. We'll have a quick look at the likes of Harry Tiller here and Brandon Chaburko, who went actually out last time by. So see what Tiller goes for. 1 can of fuel going in. There'll be 2 cans of fuel total for him. Well, there's actually more like 1 for 55%. No tires on this stop we're seeing from any of these cars who came down to this stop. So it's looking like fuel only for most of your field at this stage, Evan. And well, this has broken up the field. We're going to likely will see a green flag conclusion to this stage because now this is so split up as Chaburko will come down with his lead pack here. Watford, Pacini, Berger, Ball, Chaburko all coming in. Big spread out pack there. Bit of a lock up. Oh, Rowler's Ball nearly tags Berger as he comes onto pit road. Ball with a mistake.
And I think he was able to keep it off for the pit road wall itself, but he was really sideways. They were 3 wide onto pit road, and at 48 was struggling, getting down to speed. He was coming in a little bit hot, had to lock up the tires, but he did that. He ended up looping it around. That's not obviously what the 48 machine wanted to do. He's going to be able to get into the box nonetheless. He's going to lose contact, no doubt, with the rest of these drivers who are in and out. 2 tires going to be the call for the first couple of cars off of the pit lane. It'll be Wofford, Pacini, and Berger off of pit road, followed by Brandon Chaburko. So we saw that big group all decide to come down and pit. I think the interesting thing to take away for that, Rachel, is they did not come down as one group. They came down in 3 separate handfuls of cars. So we'll see who ends up in a race lead once all of this cycles back through. And if that's 7, who right now is coming off of the pit lane and out of turn number 2, if he'll be able to stay in front and maintain the top spot.
Absolutely. We'll see who will filter through to the race lead of this one, as it's likely to be that first group. They had a good gap over the field, so with a good collection of cars really running clean, they should have got some good time here, but we'll of course see when the numbers push through and where everyone comes out in this. But it's been interesting so far that we will see, we just talked about it before you arrived, Evan, that because of the green flag nature of this, we've all pitted here before lap 22, so 21-20 lap run. This is going to be short of our 50 lap first stage. Of course, this is a lapped race, being a crown jewel event, 94 laps in total. The second stint they may be able to make on 1 stop if this whole thing stays green, theoretically. But this first one, we're going to be at least 5 laps short potentially, which means splash and dash time.
And that opens up a whole wide range of possibilities, which I really like with the timing that the series has. And it even applies to our regular races when we're talking about a time, because we're always going to be racing to lap number 50 to end the opening stage and hand out some bonus points. And the part that I love is you can't make it on 1 stop. And it's not like you can make it, you can make it if you come down pit lane more than just those 2 times to be able to make it to the end. But it's not lined up perfectly. It's not as easy as I'm going to go 25 laps and 25, or since we have to come down pit road twice, you can't just go 17, 17, and 17 or more to make it to the end. One of these stints is going to be significantly shorter than all the others, which leaves a wide range of possibilities. Do you take the short pit on this opening run, get to the lap fuel window, say maybe get to lap number 29 or lap number 30, get to right on the bubble, then do you come down to the pit lane, or do we see drivers, as you said, stretch it out on this long stint, almost running out of fuel, and then come in and top it off, take fuel only on that last stop with about 5 or 6 laps to go or so, just enough to be able to get over the line?
That will be the tricky situation we look for, as we have seen cycle through Rodney Waffle, Chris Bassini, Andrew Berger, Brandon Chaburko, 26 on the grid, now running in 4th place. He's worked his way into this lead pack, and he's in a prime position here to fight for this one. And based on our points tables as we're seeing them right now, Evan, I believe Chris Bassini is in on a win. Rodney Wofford in on points but needs a win. Berger needs a win. Chaburko has a win. So 2 drivers in this front 4 have wins. 2 of them need them. These could be our contenders for the win at the end of this race.
And we always find it as well so difficult for people to be able to find success top to bottom at a race. There's going to be drivers, and I think most people have points at a race in which they fall back a little bit, but Wofford and Passini have been doing good, starting 2nd and 4th, but considering how this race has unfolded early, it's pretty good on the behalf of Brandon Chaburko, who started in 26th position, to be able to get right up here, get up to 4th with them very early on. The likes of Dan Harrington, who's 7th. He's up 10 spots for the start of this race. That those drivers were making a pretty good progress very early on in this one, and getting kind of a bulk of those missing positions out of the way soon, I think, is the best way to attack this thing. But it was that group of 4, the final group of drivers who came down to the pit lane, were the drivers who were able to lead that race back off of the pit lane, obviously with the exception of the one car that ended up spinning around. That was the 48 of Josh Ball, who is fallen down the running order quite a bit, just trying to locate where he ended up in all of this. Looks like he is running now in 15th position, so he lost at least 13 seconds. But the rest of those 5, meaning the 4 remaining, Wofford, Passini, Berger, Chaburko, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2.7 seconds in front of the second pack. Common wisdom would tell me that Warren and Tiller, that battle between 5th through 13th, would catch these guys up front just because they have more cars. It's quicker around the racetrack, but the drivers behind are fighting side by side, and the lead group was actually pulling away that last lap.
Yeah, they really were. The gap has opened up. It's 2.8 seconds back to Scott Warren with that second group there, leading himself. Harry Tiller, Dan Harrington, Spencer Preet, Gary Champion, Justin Devine, and other drivers here. Very big group back there. These guys are likely to catch this front 4, Evan, because this is a huge pack of cars. They've really got some much more punch going on for them. We've got nearly triple the number of cars here, so they should have a lot more speed running. I mean, we're looking at the times they're doing now, and last time by, the lap for these guys in this group was 48.75. Looking at Wofford, 48, 4. So they're actually running a bit slower. Although we've got 48.3s in that second pack, just not all of them there. So it's a mixed bag of times. They're running a little bit slower in general than that lead pack, who are running very consistent. They're all in line. They're not fighting, and they're keeping clean.
Brandon, when you look back at that second pack, the 87 and the 3 are on the outside of the racetrack, and now Preet's going to go up top with them as well. Those are the drivers who got the .3s, and sure, they're going to be a little bit quicker than the drivers on the bottom because they were using that side draft to work up at the top side of the racetrack. But if they just stayed in line, then they all might be able to maybe not get down to those 3s, but pick up a 10th or 2 from where they are and then catch the drivers up front. Now, the likes of Wofford, Passini, Berger, and Chaburko, all series veterans in this Super Speedway Cup Series, not known for laying over, but I think the call is correct on their behalf early to ride single file and actually to be able to pull away from that secondary pack, who continues to bring the side-by-side action as the 3 of Paul Servant going to bring it up the top side. Down the Alabama gang back straight away at lap number 29. This is not going to help that group, and it puts those lead 4 in a fantastic position, approaching what would be a second and final pit stop on the stage.
Certainly will be, and this will definitely make things a bit exciting for us, as we will have that final stop. But this second pack's really getting a bit hectic here. We're seeing a group move on the outside, including Servant, written out a second, the 72 and the 77 cars back there, including Preet and Cozy Jr. And they almost looked like they were going to try and make a third line there around the 87 of Rittenauer. But they just sit back in line here as this group, yeah, the gap is opening up. It's 3.5 seconds now. This is really a big difference here. I thought big pack of cars, better time, but they're just so much less organized.
And that's the key. There is strength in numbers, but I think you guys have to get on the same page. And this would be fantastic stuff if it was for the race lead, because the outside has 5 cars up there and there's only 4 on the bottom. Part of making the outside of the racetrack quick is by slowing down the bottom of the racetrack, taking the cars away from them, and it helps your case out topside. And as you see, the 69 of Tiller clear the number 76 at the inside, and he will effectively take control of this second pack. They lose another 0.2 of a second every single time around to the drivers up inside of the top 4 who stay single file. So it's fantastic racing to watch. It was a beautiful move by the 69 who made a move to the outside of the racetrack again. Servant was one of the first cars to really kick this outside lane off for this group a couple of laps ago. Tiller recognized that, did as anybody would, jump up top, take the draft, and get pushed to the race lead. So it was a nice move by him to get up to P5. I'm thinking long term though, maybe not the best call. It is different though. I think instead of running down to the end of the race, having this run down to the end of a stage. And no issues in the lead pack though. I think Chris Passini just lost an engine.
I think you might be right. Chris Passini struggling. He has just dropped it. I'm gonna have a look at his car now as he comes across the start finish line, and I don't see anything just yet. Oh, bang, yes, engine's gone. Big evasion there by the 24 of Berger and 22 of Chaburko as Chris Passini pushing too hard there on Wofford. Not enough air on his engine. That engine went pop. That's almost going to be the day for Chris Passini.
The problem is he lost the engine right at the exit of the pit lane, so he's gonna have to coast. That number 1 machine is gonna be able to go all the way around, basically 2.25 miles to the entry of the pit lane. I'm not sure if he's gonna be able to make it to that point, and if he runs out of fuel, it would add insult to injury. He'd have to wait and take a tow back to the pit lane. You're talking about multiple laps down at that point. That is a risk of running single file, as our race leaders are, and you can see a little bit of spacing between the 24 and the 22, more so than between Chaburko and Wofford, who leads this group. That's because as that third driver in line, it's always a little bit more difficult to hang on to the back end of those guys. You have no push from behind, but it was a really aggressive draft by Chris Passini. He was right up on Rodney Wofford, and he did start to move to the outside of the racetrack just moments before the engine blew, Rachel. So that tells me he had a very, very brief warning that did not last very long, and probably didn't see that one coming until it was too late.
Absolutely not, and it's unfortunate for these guys to be in this sort of situation, but these things will happen for you here, of course, and the race will go on. 3 cars at the front. That is definitely going to cost them. Look at the time now. 3 cars versus 4. They've lost almost a second.
And it's going to continue to be that way, especially with Chaburko continuing to hang back just a little bit. Again, not by design, I don't think, just the way it works, especially if this second group can now figure it out. Not only did the lead group of 4 get dropped down to 3, but at the same time, that second group has now single-filed back out. The outside charge, with the exception of the move for Tiller, who is now in 4th position, but at the moment, it was for 5th spot when it happened. Other than that, the outside died off. Nobody was able to continue to go up and get around him. Servant decided to drop back in line 4th in that group, and they are single file. Those 2 factors together is why they're walking down the gap 0.4 of a second quicker that time by than the top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, that's going to be a big telling factor. These guys will come up on them with a big head of steam here, and look who's set to take precedent of this. Harry Tiller and Scott Warren. Dan Harrington will be there to take advantage as they catch this lead group. Now, Passini there coming out a lap down with a brand new race car for him with a new engine in it. He will go down 1 lap and be out of the race for now, of course, until we get to that lap 50 cycle over. But we are almost, again, 3/4 of the way through our second fuel run here. Maybe 5-7 laps left on fuel, and we're going to see another pit stop before the end. As leaders coming in now. They're short pitting at this stage. Interesting strategy.
This is what I noted when I said that because of the differentiating strategies that you could see somebody short pitted and they're not going to run it quite all the way through, and they didn't quite come in right at the fuel window. They're making sure they're going to be safe. They come in at 15 laps to go. Watford down pit road, Andrew Berger down pit road, and Brandon Chaburko. Those are the top three. I think that was a good call because they could see they were getting caught by the group behind them, so they're going to get the pit stop taken care of, get back at a pit road together, and hope that now, as Tiller's position no longer is fourth and it becomes the race lead, maybe that group will start to fight over it a little bit more, and that would stunt the momentum that they've picked up over the last couple of laps. Nobody from now the new lead group of 8 cars decides to come down to the pit lane that time, and it'll put the 69 in front.
It does, and this will be interesting to see Harry Tiller out front in this position, and they're going to have to come, of course, for fuel. Will they run this till the end of the tank or not? That's going to be interesting to see whether they do that, but as things stand, the 3 at the front realize they're losing time. They made an interesting call there to stop before fuel early. That could be a critical move.
And when you come down to the pit lane at this point, you haven't necessarily run out of all the gas you have on board, so you're basically topping it off to make it to the end. The flip strategy is if you're going fuel only, if you decide to pit late in the run, basically run it as long as you can, you're not going to fill it up because we'd expect everybody to have to come back down to the pit lane, and strategically it makes sense to come back down to the pit lane since they're shooting for lap 50 at that caution at the end of the stage. So if you come in with only 5 laps left in the stage, you only get a splash and go. You limit your time on pit road. That helps you get back out onto the racetrack quicker, assuming that you can cleanly execute getting on and off of the 60-mile-an-hour pit road speed limit. That may give you a little bit of an upper hand over the drivers who had to sit down on the pit lane and take more fuel to take them a longer distance. Your race leaders working around the number 61. That's Mike Thiel, who falls a second lap down. There's a handful of drivers a lap down as this pit stop cycle continues to work through. Josh Ball, Brandon Monsivice, some familiar names in this series. Olsen, Ray Rittenauer, Rod Flag, we documented his issues as well. Also some of the names towards the back of the pack sitting 1 lap down. But the drivers who completed pit service are 13th, 14th, and 15th. Chaburko, Watford, and Berger in that order, and they are 33 seconds behind the drivers up front who have yet to pit. So that gives the guys up front a very clear idea on how much time you have from getting down to speed to getting back up to it.
Absolutely, and we'll see that one as this race progresses. 11 laps to go until we hit that end of stage 1, when we've got to look what's looking to be, and I will touch wood at this stage to say what could be our first caution of the race on lap 50.
But something we've been talking about up to this point in the season. Do we see this strategy bring itself out in the opening heat of a race? And it would obviously present this scenario that we're in now, where drivers have to pit twice, and Levine is going to come down pit road for his second time. Paul Servant, Gary Champion in as well. And Holloway in front of them a lap down, just now exiting the pit lane. It continues to, I don't know if amaze me or confuse me are the right words that I'm thinking of, but kind of perplex me that these guys are not come down as one group, and that is going to change everything. A caution is going to come out in the middle of the pit service, and it's an issue with Dwayne Cooper and Ramon Evans.
It is, and we'll take a quick look at what happened here. Ramon Evans and Dwayne Cooper, both of them damaged on the start-finish line as you approach the pit road here. Looks like the 06 came down early. Oh no, the 00 came down. Efforts came down a bit sooner, and contact was made. He did. Oh, no, he came back up again. 00 came back up. And that's where we had our contact for those 2 cars. Wrecking on the front stretch. Well, we thought we'd change everything. Now everyone can pit, and we're back on a 0 strategy here. And unfortunately, that might not pay out for some of the guys who stopped early.
And it is difficult to get yourself down on the pit lane. There's no question about that. But it was a very early move by Dwayne Cooper, because he came down off of the racetrack still while he's on the banking, and that's why that car got sideways. The 83 did exactly what he was supposed to do. It came down on the flat, didn't cut the 00 off. He stayed right up against the yellow line, but It was Dwayne Cooper who got sideways, came up and tagged him, and now this really hurts the drivers who stayed out up front, because those drivers who have completed pitting, the group that was in front before they dropped down, and half of the group that Harry Tiller was leading, they're good. They can stay out now and make it to the end of this thing. Everybody else out front that had stayed out, though, is going to have to come down to the pit lane this time, get fuel, and then they'll find themselves towards the back.
That's a big factor, isn't it? Some of these guys will be able to stay out on the racetrack, and the likes of Wofford, Chaburko there, and Ball didn't quite stay on the lead lap, but Wofford and Berger did. That's a big advantage for those guys. They are going to be in a great spot here, but a lot of these guys with one lap down will get a wave around, and that's a lot to your field.
It is, and they're going to be obviously towards the back, so Harry Tiller is going to end up mid-pack, despite the fact that he will be towards the back of things here. He's going to go just a splash and go, which I feel like was the strategy for those drivers coming into this. If we were to stay under green flag conditions, Jimmy Coleman going to make a similar call from stuck one lap down to get himself back onto the lead lap, and shuffles everybody up once again. And while we didn't necessarily get through this run completely to the end of the stage under green flag conditions, Rachel, we did get a really good look at those differing pit strategies, and the caution, whenever it comes out at a plate track, obviously shakes things up, but most importantly, if it ever happens just like it did now in the middle of a cycle of pit service, it's really a headache for these guys to try to figure out how to get themselves back in contention if you get caught a lap down.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be a great thing to see how this one will play out now with a 10-lap sprint. Hey, our pack is all bunched up here. This means we're going to have an absolute stonking fight for the last, 5 or 6 laps until we get to the end of this stage. Suddenly, we have a race in our hands, Evan.
It'll be a shootout to the end of this, and again, everybody who is now going to be, I guess, cycling through to the front in all of this is going to be in a pretty good position. They're going to have to pit regardless at the end of the cycle, but I think that this pit stop, as they came down with 9 to go in the stage, is going to put the likes of Tiller and some other drivers a little bit too short on fuel by the time the stage ends to really consider staying out at the stage end to maybe cycle through to the front or get themselves in a better position. So I think we kind of hit the reset button. It could have been worse. The bad news at all of this is for the drivers who were stuck laps down, 12th through 20th are scored in between the pace car and your race leader. They're not technically a lap down. They're going to get a wave by, though, the next time by. They'll get themselves back into position. Those are the drivers I was talking about earlier, Bonsevice and Brown and Rod Flag and Rittenauer and so on and so forth. And then there's other drivers who are going to be stuck a lap down after this yellow still. That's McCarrick, Piscini, Thiel, Halladar, and Hedrick. So you get yourself dealt a bad card. You're a little bit deeper in the pack. That means when you come down to the pit lane and pit, you end up a lap down during the cycle, and that's how having a rough start to your night can kind of compound your issues and put yourself in a spot like you're in now. Next thing you can do, and really only thing you can do, try to work yourself out of it now.
Certainly is, and this will be a tough spot to work your way out of. We're about to have a fantastic run here, and looking forward to seeing this one. Of course, a lot of these guys, have all waved around now, so everyone has. The ones who are 2 laps down now, one are now back on the lead laps, so it's going to be great.
And again, just as we've been getting used to our new format on this Season 15 championship, tonight is the Stars Fell on Alabama 250, so we go back to the race length by laps, and you can see that continuing to wind down up at the top of your screen. We will get the end of the stage with what's going to be 44 laps to go in this race, and it'll be laps going to the end, so we don't have to worry about busting out the stopwatch as we have been in weeks past. This race pays just as many points, just as dividends as a trip to victory lane here will put you into the playoffs just as any other one does. And in fact, these special events would typically be some of the longer races on the season, and I think that we will have a little bit of a longer run, maybe 5 or 10 laps, somewhere in that window, Rachel, longer on laps than we would do on time, because we've been getting in the 80s or so when we've been going on the 100-minute clock, but this still isn't that long of a race, just because the format is different. In fact, it doesn't throw the drivers off. They might even be more comfortable kind of reverting back to this for the first time this season, raced, and we'll also see this format in stage later on this year for the Draft Chart 300. That's going to be the final race before the playoffs start, and then the final race on the year, the finale at Florida 400 at Daytona. That one also going to be a lap count race. Everything else going to be going on time as it has been all season.
Absolutely, of course. And with lap numbers, these guys know when the race will end. That's a bigger thing as well. They'll know just how hard they have to push and when. This one's about to be a very fiery event, though. We do have a caution in 6 laps' time, so they know it's coming.
And a lights out on top of the pace car means that we get to double them up and send them once more for a 6-lap shootout to end the stage. If the caution were to come out and would bridge us through lap number 50, that would act as the end of the stage at the moment of caution, and we will wait for race control to let us know what's going on with that if it is to happen. But I say the easy way to work through this is 6 laps, a good hard clean racing to decide who makes it into the top 10 and walks away with those bonus points as we close it on halfway.
Very much, and halfway will be an exciting point to reach if we reach it in one piece, Evan, which is entirely up for grabs now with this entire field bunched up. 23 cars up on the lead lap here as we'll head through turns 3 and 4, ready to get this one going once again, and the final run to the stage 1 winner. Who will it be?
Hiller, Warren, Cozy, Harrington, and Preet are going to be able to maintain the race lead off of this, as the 22 at Chaburko was not able to catch up to them under caution in time. 69 and company were able to get back out before those drivers who were 30 some odd seconds back had caught up to the rest of the field. A lot of lap traffic prevented them from cycling through to the race lead, and the 69 is going to have to try to take advantage of this one. First time tonight we go re-green from Talladega. Good jump for the inside and the outside. Tiller, small advantage to 1.
It is a small advantage, but it is an advantage. Chaburko diving low already. He's going to cycle his way under these guys on the outside lane. I think, and then pop up in front of them, knowing him. He'll definitely make this one interesting, as the outside line just fell apart there on that restart. 77 going to dive out. Going to try and make a challenge here. This one's going to break up the momentum on both sides. Chaburko's going to shoot that gap if they're not careful.
Gotta watch him. The 22 always has an eye out for trying to make it 3 wide. He's in a pretty good spot right now, though. Gonna clear the lead car on the outside of the racetrack. That's the 77 Cozy, who drops back, and even the 7 machine's gonna be clear. Let's see if that dynamic duo goes from 3rd and 4th and makes a play for the race lead on the outside of the racetrack. Chaburko wants to do it. He can't get the 7 to bite quite yet. I think that was the plan, though. It just doesn't work.
Not quite yet. It did not, but these guys are all going to find themselves into interesting positions on the racetrack to do what they need to do here, but it's going to be tricky to see if they can manage to do this one right without causing bigger carnage than perhaps we might see, so we'll have to be very careful. As 77 pops out once again, Michael Cozy Jr. heading towards the front, going to try and lead this outside line here, and someone's got to.
Someone's got to take advantage of it, and he's going to be the driver to make a play to the outside. The top lane doesn't necessarily have a lot of momentum at the moment, and the driver who typically gets it going is the guinea pig. We got issues with the 82, though, behind him. Dan Harrington is into the outside wall, and he's going to take friends with him. Caution flag is back out as he could not hang on and took out Alex Halinar and Chris Pacini.
If we have a look back and get a replay here, the 8 of Dana Osborne just moves up from the bottom lane to try and avoid the 14. The 14 is kind of hard to check up because of traffic. The 8 doesn't slow down. The 8 just pulls up out of the way to 14 and just swipes the nose of the 82, wobbling him up and then putting him in the outside wall, causing the whole wreck. So it's got to go on the 8.
And that's what not to do in traffic if a car slams on its brakes in front of you, because it is the 14 machine who checked up in front of the 8. And if the 8 were to have gotten into the back of the 14, it would have been the 14's fault if we're talking about how a traffic accident would work. But you got to know who's around you. Situational awareness is huge. And the 8, instead of getting hard on the brakes, swerves to the right, takes out the 82. And therefore the 8 machine now becomes the driver at fault in that accident. And he took out not only Harrington, but then again, Harrington wasn't able to recover, and he collected a couple of other drivers as well. I think we were gonna be okay if Harrington maybe just smacked the outside fence and kept going, but he came back down in front of traffic, took a couple of other drivers out. No chance that that one was gonna stay green. The yellow flag drops, and that was right at lap number 45. Pit road is open this time. A couple of drivers thinking about it. You could pit here, decide to not take the points in the stage, and then stay out if we do get a restart before this stage gets back underway. We'll have to keep our ears on the race control channel and let you know what's happening with that. This time by 3 laps to go in the stage with the lights staying on top of the pace car.
It does indeed, and that means Harry Tiller's going to be our stage 1 winner at this stage of the race, as there'll be no need for it to swap around. So big one there for Harry Tiller.
If he's able to hang on to it, he would be the first multi-stage winner this season. We had stages in the opening 4 races of this season that followed the season opening Superspeedway 500. That one was a straight-up race won by Jason Altmans, but we've seen Justin Levine, Chris Piscini, Paul Servant, and most recently, as of 1 week ago, Harry Tiller come home with stage wins so far this year. So not only would he be the first double winner, but he would also be a back-to-back winner in the stages, which isn't necessarily a great thing. It's good for points, no doubt. Remind you that the driver who wins the stage walks away with 10 bonus points, and those points drop down 1 point per position until you get to 10th spot, who gets 1 point, and nobody from 11th on the back is able to get anything. But nobody who has won a stage yet this year has gone on to not only win that same race. So Chris Piscini is the only driver to have won a stage and a race, but it did not come at the same evening. Bad if you're trying to get that automatic ticket to the championship. Not terrible if you're going for points, because this format, Rachel, could actually let the driver who comes in second or third at the end of the race get the most points. The race winner may not walk out of here with the most points. If you get 10 bonus points for winning a stage, come home second in position, you're going to get 7 more points or so than the race leader, the race winner in this thing. Now, is it worth trading those 70 points for a ticket to the playoffs? I would say no at this stage, but it is something to note and is interesting, which is why I like the strategy around this midway point.
Absolutely, and well, this has opened up our second half of the race. Of course, we aren't going to have that crazy run to the end of the first stage we thought we might have, but you know what? It's still going to be pretty good here, I think.
Yeah, drivers just now once again dropping down to the pit lane as race control discusses the end of this segment here, and I believe with the light still on top of the pace car, if they were to go off the next time by, and race control is talking about that at the moment, so trying to listen in on how they're going to make that call. If the lights go at the next time by, we would restart with 50 laps complete. That would be the end of the stage. The question is, do you score the stage points at the moment of caution? Do you score the stage points at the end of lap number 50, which would be a restart? And then do you bring the caution back out? So that's things that race control are looking at the moment to decide. And it is all very dependent on what happens with the lights the next time by.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. These guys are not doubled up yet, so they won't be going back this time by. So even if they go next time by and double up next time by, they'll be crossing the line on basically running 200 meters to the line to go green. So it will be maybe a 1-lap shoot at best. Although I think because obviously they can move the stage end here, so we might actually see them actually do that.
And the driver's just having a chat on the radio right now with race control, trying to figure out at what point in this race are those stage points actually awarded at, because there was a small chance we were going to see, you know, maybe a 1-lap shootout to the end of this iteration. So we did see drivers come down to the pit lane and pit. They were then, therefore, not in their running position at the moment of caution when they came by the start-finish line, and it won't be in that position when the stage technically ends. So it is a tricky thing, these caution flags, and if we receive any additional information on 2nd through 10th position, we'll pass it on to you. But I think the only thing that matters is Harry Tiller's got himself another stage win on season 15, and it looks like the lights stay on top of the pace car, so the next time by the start-finish line, the stage will end and points will be awarded. So no points have been handed out yet. It is going to come at the end of lap 50, so race control has made that call.
We have indeed, so we will see what will happen, of course, as we'll double up here. I think this time by we should double up based on what we're seeing from the race cars. Lights will not go out on a pace car, no, so we have another lap yet to go here under caution, so looks like it's going to be under caution.
So it's bad news for the drivers who were up inside of the top 10 and who decided to pit when the caution flag actually came out. So it's a tough break for those drivers, and we'll get the official look at how they're going to come across the start finish line this time by. Harry Taylor's going to go on to a second consecutive stage win. Let's take a look at our iRacing Midway race break as we pace around the Talladega Superspeedway, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is your one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and more. Lap number 50 going to come to an end, and Harry Taylor, 10 bonus points in the back pocket. The number 69 Pennzoil Ford is your race leader. Brandon Chaburko going to get 9 bonus points for second. Rodney Wofford, 8 bonus points for third. 7 bonus points, fourth position to Michael Cozy, and 6 bonus points for Paul Servant in 5th position. 5 bonus points for P6 Andrew Berger. 4 bonus points for 7th position Data Osborne. 3 bonus points for P8 Justin Levine. Andy Kessler in 9th going to get 2 bonus points for the end of the stage, and Travis Brown gets that 1 bonus point for coming across the line in 10th.
11th place tonight will be Larry Camp at this point. Down Brandon Cruz, Monster Vice. Those drivers, some of them coming down pit road here. Scott Warren behind them. 14th place, Sean McCarrick. Glenn Hedrick in 15th. Mike Thiel, Spencer Preet, Josh Ball, Tanner McMahon, and Jimmy Coleman in 20th.
Continuing on through the rest of these drivers as your field says double up and getting ready to go back. A few more drivers on the lead lap coming off of the pit lane. 21st is Rod Flangray, Rittenauer 22nd, and Harrington 23rd. 24th is Daniel Holloway. Gary Champion is 25th. And the final driver on the lead lap is Dwayne Cooper in 26th position. 2 laps down, 27th, Alex Hallinar. 2 laps down, 28th, Chris Pasini. And Ramon Evans is still out there in 29th position, 5 laps down. So to the halfway point, we have no drivers retired in this one. So we'll look top to bottom at your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com and sign up today. For a limited time, if you go to iRacing.com/World of Outlaws, you can take advantage of some exclusive promo codes. You can get yourself a 1-year iRacing subscription for over 50% off the sticker price, or you could also take a 3-month subscription for less than $5. Those are offers that are valid on new iRacing memberships only. You can find out more information at iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. So that ends the stage, and we get set to go back underway with 43 laps to go from Talladega Superspeedway, just on the cusp of 1 pit stop to make it to the end.
Yeah, we certainly are there, Evan, as we are going to get ready to go back, and, well, it's going to be tight, but I think 1 pit stop could be the number if this goes green, though, but we're bunched up, so first, looking on the front row, Chaburko and Tiller.
And those two seem to have a magnet in one another's bumper to be able to bring them back together. They go to the outside of the racetrack. Thought the 22 was going to go up there as well, but a 69, he will not. He'll stay low. Chaburko focused on the 69, loses focus on Michael Cozy Jr. So he'll go to the inside. 3 wide for the race lead at lap number 52. He'll rocket to the race lead, and that is 2 drivers now who are too focused with each other to worry about everybody else. And that move to keep the 70 or to keep the 69 behind him, put the 77 to the race lead and cost Brandon Chaburko 3 spots.
I think Chaburko there was proving a point, Evan. He did that on purpose. He didn't care if he lost some spots, but I think he wanted to put Tiller in his place.
We've seen these drivers race around one another many a time so far in this still young season. No surprise there, but a lot of their battles have been somewhat spirited, and there goes Tiller to the inside. He will keep it off of the wall, so we will stay green, but he just got bullied at a turn 2 and hip-checked by Brandon Chaburko, who almost took him out of the race.
Yeah, he certainly did, and wow, Harry Tiller has just had a very close run in there. Hopefully he goes off back up to speed here. He had a big save, so lucky by Harry Tiller, but we'll see if he can get himself back up there running.
It was a good save because he easily could have been nose first into the inside fence, so it's better than having nothing left and going home on the hook. But if those drivers were already battling a little bit spirited amongst the two of them before, you can ensure yourself that if they find each other a little bit later on in this race, Tiller may just decide to repay that favor. You did see on that LSRTV replay, though, he was able to get himself very quickly back up onto the racetrack. However, he is now 2 seconds off for the race lead in what is really one long pack. He hasn't lost touch with the lead pack, but he has fallen to 19th position after that contact at a turn number 2. And it took a very fast car out of the equation up at the front of the field. Chaburko assumed that number 4 position that was now vacant after the 69 machine was no longer in that spot. He was spinning to the inside of the racetrack, so the 24 drops behind Paul Servant, just in front of the 8 machine at Dana Osborne, and they run single file up at the front of the field. Rayon and another driver sideways in turn number 1. Looks like the 01 machine, Travis Brown, sideways in turn number 2. That car went down to the apron. He was able to save it, and he will hang on. But just as we saw with Tiller, the spots go by in bunches. At least 7 drivers getting it around him. In fact, hey, there's Harry Tiller going around him. Another driver who had an issue to go 3 wide back in this battle for what looks like it's going to be about 18th or 17th position. So 2 mistakes, 2 drivers from the top 10 dropping outside of the top 15. But the thing that I'm really curious about and that we're going to have to keep an eye on, and it's a lot easier to do the math based on laps in this current format, is having issues with Alex Hallinar back in the field a little bit. See if we can catch up with what's going on with him. So far, though, we are staying green for the moment. Alex Hallinar is off into the grass. That green Gatorade machine is stopped on the inside of turn number 1. He had some sort of an electrical issue, or maybe an issue on his sim, because that car blacked out for a minute. When it came back, he was in the grass. So I don't know if he lost his monitor and just tried to get down and out of the way, but I don't think he had any idea where he was going until the last second. And Hallinar is able to survive that issue. He did not make contact with the inside wall. He will be okay. Back to the point I was trying to make, as everybody seems to try to spit it out in 1 and 2 every time I go to it, is how many laps are going to be left in this race. A lot of drivers pitted at the very opening of that yellow flag most recent, but some topped off at the last second, Rachel, and this run being 43 laps to the end, if it were to go green, would be really stretching it to be able to make that distance on only 1 trip down to the pit lane. Don't be surprised if some of those drivers who topped off at the last second may be saving if they're going to make it the 21.5 laps it takes to get around this place and make it to the end on 1 stop.
Yeah, to put this in context, they're going to basically have to stretch it 24 laps on each run, and not going to happen. Or actually, no, 22, 23. Whereas so far, from what we've seen, it's about 20, 21. So it's going to be 1 or 2 laps short. This is going to be very tight. A bit of fuel saving, you might actually be able to make that. It's mathematically possible, but are you able to save fuel in this sort of pack? It's going to be tough.
If you're at the back, I think it's a little bit easier, and you don't even necessarily find yourself saving fuel on purpose. Just if you're on the inside of the racetrack, you tend to leave a little bit more space. You can see the 54 and the 48 as they're going to make a challenge for the race lead. They're quicker. It's because that foot's all the way down to the ground, and they're passing cars on the outside with the side draft. If you're the 7, the 3, the 24, you're lifting right now, and that means that subsequently, you're saving fuel. So anybody but the person leading a line is going to save some amount of fuel. If you do make a concerted effort to try to save a little bit more, I think you might be able to get a lap or so out of it just by coasting a little bit in the center of the quarter. It would help if you had a push up from behind just a little bit. But We'll see if that comes into play. Pit stops are still about 15 laps away, so let's not talk about it too much at the moment. Let's watch the battle for the race lead. Brandon Cruz Monsivice is going to get a big push into turn 2, and it's not even going to be close. 1 car, 2 car. Do we see 3 cars get clear of Cozy? No, the 24 is not invited to the soiree. The 54 and the 48 go to the race lead.
They do indeed. Ball back up towards the front end there with Monsivice as 24 didn't quite make it, but he has got Wofford with him still, so they've got plenty to play with here. And if they drop back, they're still going to be in the top 5, so great positioning for them at this point in time as they are racing now across the line onto lap 60 here. 34 laps remaining on this fuel run. Like you said there, we're looking at not long to go. Maybe another 6 laps, maybe 7 laps.
Couple of the drivers down to the pit lane in this one. We'll see if we can get an update on some of those names, the likes of Andy Kessler, who just came in and topped off with a fuel. I don't see somebody being able to make it from lap number 59 to lap number 94. So those drivers who did decide to come down to the pit lane must come down pit road at least one more time. And we had an issue onto the pit lane. I just saw it out of the corner of the screen a moment ago. The 3 and the 8 came down pit road. That was Paul Servant, and it looks like the 8 machine of Osborne, trying to confirm that it was him, but it was. They pitted at lap 59. The 8 got sideways and spun the 3 of Servant out. Those drivers went for a ride. That's the group that Andy Kessler came down pit road with. So that's really bad news for the 3 of Servant. Not only do none of these cars have the ability to make it to the end of this race without having to pit again, so that will mean they have a complete additional stop in their strategy compared to everybody else, but now a lot of them have damage. I missed that the first time. Wasn't necessarily looking for race leaders to come down to the pit lane this early because you're still way outside of the window, but a couple of drivers have been trickling down.
Certainly are, and this will definitely break strategy up now. We're seeing cars really off different cycles, so it's going to be exciting to see what these guys will do with this one. I think we've just seen Alex Helena has officially retired his car, as is Chris Bassini at this point in time. I believe Ramon Evans might be, no, he's on track still. Daniel Osborne also still on track, coming off the road there with Paul Servant. They both scored 1 lap down at the moment. But Brandon Chaburko, he's a lap down too, so he's had to pit early. Not what he wanted to do, but it's the position he's now in. And we're now off on a very awkward cycle where I think this field is so split up because of the latest strategy. This could again be another green run. This will be very unusual for a Talladega race.
And so many drivers are having to come down to the pit lane early because they had pitted before the end of the stage. And the idea is if we were to stay green, they would have just run it out to lap number 50. Everybody would have pitted together. But again, you had to stay out that entire cycle to be able to lead at the end of it all. And the 69 was able to come down and pit, get out in front of those cars, lead the stage, and still have a decent amount of fuel. But he also, as one of the drivers, has decided to come down to the pit lane. So it may be just a little bit too much. Is the 22 machine going to join the drivers who have now come down to the pit lane and gotten service? I think that 43 is just too big of a number. And now you have so many different factions of drivers breaking off in groups of 3 or 4. It's going to be hard to maintain count of who has pitted and who hasn't. Monsivice continues to lead this race. Maybe that group is able to make it to the end of this race with just 1 stop.
Could be that way, of course, Evan, but it's going to be a tough one really in this position. We're seeing a lot of cars breaking up now. 4-car packs, 5-car packs seems to be the norm here. We're not seeing very hard pushing, so the field is spreading out dramatically now. We're not seeing that cohesion we had in that first run, or the second run I should say, after the first pit cycle, where we had like a first group of 4 maybe, and we had the next group of 10. Here it's all 2s and 3s and 4s, so this is really fractured.
Got drivers, 2 seconds back, a group 5 seconds back, and then a group 40 seconds back. So that's just really how spread out this field has become, and we had a pretty big group off of the restart. When Tiller had that close call with Chaburko to turn number 2, I noted that he fell back to 19th spot, but that wasn't even out of the lead pack because it was just one big single file line. So off of the restart, I think it would have been hard to predict just how this race was going to shake out and kind of find us where we sit now. This time by 30 laps to go from the Talladega Superspeedway. Can the 54 and friends make it to the end? They have to go at least 9 more laps, and that's pushing it to be able to make it on the final stint from that point on to be able to go 21 laps. But you got to go at least, I think, at minimum, get to lap 75 if you want any hope of being able to make it to the end. If you get there, I think you got a fighting chance.
Absolutely, there's definitely a chance in this one, but you know how these things go. They end up being in a very kind of strict position where, oh, we actually started to see some packs forming up here, actually, now I talk about it, Evan. I'm seeing this one here led by the 61 of Field. We've got the 21 of Hedrick, Preet, written out the second, Holloway, all the way back to the 26 car there of, Holloway, sorry, I just said his name. 5-car group here, catching this 4-car group ahead of them, the leaders, so we could see a real challenge coming up soon.
And that's natural to happen. You have a couple of cars 2 seconds away from each other, 5 seconds away from each other. They're all going to slowly mold together. It's just how the drafting dynamic works. The thing that I'm really keeping an eye on is names like Mike Thiel, Glenn Hedrick, Spencer Preet, Ray Rittenauer, Daniel Holloway. Can they get up and become the 4-car party up front? I think they will. They're only about half a second off at this moment, and I think now every single lap Thiel is going to get a little bit more and a little bit more of the weight coming off of the 24. Just as I say that, drivers bailing to pit road, going to be tight. The 24 with a fantastic drive on the pit road, Berger in, Spencer Preet and Michael Cozy Jr.
Yeah, interesting now getting onto pit road again, breaking this cycle up even more. We're already seeing this splits now cause a great big diversion in what we're seeing through this race. So 66 now, we're inside 30 to go, 28 laps really on the clock here. This field is so broken up, I think, unless we have a single car incident or something between 2 single cars, we're not going to get a big one in this race, but we may see a caution, if something goes wrong.
And because we're so split up now, just as the caution that we saw earlier to this one that set us up for a 8-lap to go or so shootout in the stage end, which was close to lap 42, 43 or so, and then which led to a subsequent caution flag later on. That first yellow having come out in the middle of pit service is what got us in such a chaotic situation to begin with. There's no formality to where you started and where you run now. There's really no patch. You got a driver who started in 19th leading this race, a driver who started in 7th and 2nd, a driver who did not qualify and rolled off in 29th running 3rd, which is just 2 spots in front of Ray Rittenauer, who's 5th, who started on pole. Everybody is completely split up from the drivers who they started around, which can give us a unique kind of scenario because just the way it works, not to hit on anybody or anything, Rachel, but the drivers who are series veterans in this thing tend to qualify very well, and they tend to start around each other, they tend to be racing around each other, and they're able to work together. Everybody's so split up. You've got a lot of series veterans working with some drivers who they may not see as often on the racetrack, somebody who they may not be as familiar with in terms of their driving style, and that could be kind of a learning process over this run to see if you can trust somebody and get somebody to trust you.
Absolutely. Some of these guys will be working, like you said, for the first time, so yeah, trust and learning, that's a big thing for I can English, I promise. Trust is huge in super speedway racing. I'd say it's bigger than it is perhaps talent in some cases. Knowing what the other driver's going to do and trusting them to do the right thing, and sometimes making a blind decision based on what they do, is what you've got to do in this sort of racing. So these guys have to know who they're racing with, and just like the real thing, you know, they learn to see the style of the drivers they're around, and they will pick that up. These guys working with new people, they get to get that too, so maybe this will help improve racing in future.
And it's single file up at the front of the field. Hedrick on the radio chatting with the drivers around him, trying to formulate a plan to come down to the pit lane. We're at lap number 70. This race is trying to go to number 94. If you pit now, you're trying to go 24 laps at a tank of gas. I do not see that happening with the 55% limited fuel cell that's been introduced for this 15th season of Superspeedway Cup Series competition, and they still haven't decided. The 21 of Hendricks over the radio saying, what are we doing? Are we coming down this time? Are we coming down this time? Here they go. Monster Vice is going to come down pit road. Thiel is going to stay out, but Josh Ball is in, Rittenauer is in, Holloway is in, and a second group also with Harrington and Warren.
Problems. I think we just saw a big spin there, actually, onto Hedrick, but the 21 of Hedrick.
All by himself.
He dumped it. Yeah, he just lost it too fast in.
That was not even close. That was if I attempted to get down to pit road.
Absolutely, I've seen you try it before.
And he just came over the radio now. Glenn Hedrick, a familiar name with the Superspeedway Cup Series, a series veteran. Sometimes you just miss it. and I think that he hesitated a little bit. It was a little bit of a late dive on the pit road, and just was nowhere remotely close to getting that car down to speed in time. Monsivice is lucky that he didn't get T-boned, and sometimes you mess up. That was a mess up by Hedrick. It happens. It's a costly one, but it happens.
Oh, absolutely. And I think most of the instances we've seen so far in today's race have all been getting onto pit road, or around the pit entrance area. So that's been our trouble spot today, off turn 4.
Hedrick all by himself. The rest of the drivers who he was racing with already back up to speed. Thiel has given up the race lead. He's in the box. Tanner Mann coming down pit road from 2nd. Jimmy Coleman coming down pit road from 3rd. Flag is going to pit from 4th. Hedrick is going to pit from 5th position, so he's going to come right back down pit road. I think he completely abandoned his last attempt to pit, so this should put Josh Ball in the 48 and Brandon Cruz Monsivice in the 54 to the race lead. They were last on pit road. As I scroll back through the laps to get a number for you, they were last on pit road way back, looks like on lap number 51. So they're going to have to be coming down to the pit lane. No, they've just pitted. Sorry, they were on lap number 71. So those drivers just pitted. That's 23 laps to the end as they assume the race lead. That's really tight, like within 1 lap of being able to make it on fuel.
Yeah, it is, and that's maybe savable, to be honest. It just depends. I think these guys might be able to eke a little bit out as we look towards where our current race lead is right now. Of course, 72 and 24 getting pushed past the leader. We might see Monsivice have to come down pit road himself soon. Actually, no, he pitted off sequence, didn't he? So he's actually a little bit better for now. But he could find himself in a sticky spot later on. Big run there for the car of Spencer Preet at 72 to lead for the first time. That's a lap-led point for him. He'll be very pleased to get to the front of this race.
Had an incident on the racetrack between the 22 of Brandon Chaburko and the all-run of Travis Brown. No caution has come out. We'll see if we can get a second look at it. It happened at lap number 71 for both of those drivers coming into the tri-oval. Travis Brown was holding the bottom of the racetrack, and it's something that we brought up a couple of times. There's basically 3 lanes on this track all the way around. Now, you can fit more than 3 cars, but there's 3 lanes because there's 2 set of white lines, and it breaks this track up into thirds. When you go into the tri-oval, a 4th lane appears on the bottom. I think Travis Brown successfully held the bottom of what's the bottom in turn 4, but as soon as that 4th lane popped up, Chaburko dove to the inside. Really aggressive move. The 01 tried to prevent him from going down there. They made contact, and Brown is not happy at all, and they are having an elongated discussion back and forth on the radio.
Yeah, they really are, and wow, they're going to have to try and do something with this one to settle the differences in this race, but these things happen every week, so they're used to it by this point, as hopefully they'll get themselves underway once again.
And for the drivers who had to pit very early in that opening run of this run to the end, I guess, off of the restart, they are coming back down to the pit lane this time, but at turn number 4. So drivers are going to be coming back down pit road. Looks like Rodney Wofford's coming in. Paul Servant pitting. Dana Osborne, Harry Tiller, Justin Levine. These drivers aren't going to make it to the end. They need to top off with more fuel.
They certainly will, and that's going to cost them time here as 20 to go. Just inside 20 to go at this point, actually. So this is coming into the final crunch.
So those drivers are no doubt going to be able to make it to the end. 75 laps complete at 94 on the board. I think you can do the 19 on fuel, which is basically right to the number as some of the drivers who began our pit road service just as this race got underway for Green Flag Racing through the opening 2/5 of that opening stage. So they're going to be able to make it to the end, assuming, and this is really all they have to bank on is hope, to be honest, the drivers up front, that they would not be able to stretch it 23 laps on fuel. They would then have to come down and top off. Those drivers who just pitted hope that then the race lead would kind of cycle back to them. This is now a more conventional fuel strategy picture, with the drivers up front and leading have less fuel than the drivers behind them.
Oh, problems!
And hoping that the guys in front run out.
Big hit. Big hit from Monsivice, but no caution will come out. Out of turn number 2, contact with the 26 who just tapped his bumper. Huge wreck there for Brandon Cruz Monsivice in the 54 car. And the yellow flag does not wave, although big trouble. Yeah, huge crash.
He was in a fantastic position, race winner already this season. That one happened so quick, I didn't even see him go off to the nose of the 26. It was very slight contact, and Amon Savais took a huge hit to the right-hand side of that car. Surprised the caution wasn't automatically thrown by the sim, and because the 54 was the only driver involved, he limps it on the inside of the racetrack now in turn number 4, trying to get back to the pit lane. There will be no caution manually from race control, and we are going to stay under green flag conditions. It takes a fast car and a driver in a good spot to challenge for the race win out of this thing. Good news for Brandon Monsivais. He won earlier this season here at Talladega. He's locked into the playoffs.
He is, and that's a good position for him to be in, so he's not too upset by this. It's a problem, and it's annoying, of course, but yeah, like you said, he is still in this one. He's still got a good position to be, so it could be worse.
He drops down to the pit lane. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get back out in this or not. He is. He's going to take his quick repair out of Brandon Monsivais. Is going to rejoin the racetrack one lap down. Not out of this thing. If we were to get a yellow, he'd be eligible for a wave around to be able to get himself back to the lead lap. Even if he did that, he'd be all the way back in 21st. There's still a good number of cars on the lead lap. Never say never, though. Monsivais going to join Chaburko, Hedrick, Osborne, and Servant as the 5 drivers now total who are still running on the racetrack but are stuck a lap down. And some of those names I just mentioned are right in front of your race leaders. Spencer Preet, rookie, has taken over the race lead in this race, followed by Andrew Berger. Quite a contrast. The driver who leads this race is a first-time driver compared to the guy on his bumper who is this series' only 4-time champion in Berger. But those are the drivers who have assumed the race lead. Right in front of them, Travis Brown, Justin Levine, you got Tiller, Wofford, Camp Company. Those drivers are within a danger zone of being lapped.
Yeah, they are, and that's going to be a problem for those guys, of course. Monsivais has a new car at least, and going to have to work pretty hard here, but yeah, Brown, Levine, and Tiller. Tiller, though, that's unlucky for those guys. Although, as you mentioned, the group there led by some of the lead lap cars there as well, some guys further up the field as well, and some lap down cars like Osborne in that group, and not Chaburko, I thought it was for a moment, but this is really going to shake things around, so yeah, they're really trailing on the back of this pack pretty hard, and Preet, Berger, Cozy, Holloway, Rittenauer, that lead pack all the way back to Josh Ball, really making some steam right now. 48.3s, they're running very fast laps.
Just an update on Brandon Chaburko. He has brought that machine behind the wall. I just noted that he was one of the drivers running one lap down. He has parked that car. His night is done early after that contact with Travis Brown. I can say the same thing for the other Brandon as I did with Monsivais, and that Chaburko will be okay. He has a win earlier this season from the Daytona International Speedway. That was his 21st on his career, put him into the all-time race wins lead in this series by now 1 win over Wofford on the totals, with Chaburko's 21 compared to Wofford's 20 in the old-time standings. Chaburko not going to finish tonight. Again, no issues for him. He already has the golden ticket to the playoffs. We're really starting to run out of time now tonight here from Talladega, running down to the end of this thing, and we might get all 94 laps in, Rachel, before we hit what would be our regular time clock of 100 minutes, which we would see on any other night. This time by, only going to be about 13 laps to go in this race. And everybody up front just kind of biting their nails and hoping they could make it to the end of this thing. It would be quite a feat. They can stretch the fuel to go from lap number 71 for some of them, but for the 72 and the 24, they last pitted on lap number 67. So they are very close to running out of gas here. They, I think, are 5 or 6 laps short, so I don't see that group out in front being able to make it to the end.
No, that's possible, but you never know who could stretch what, so it could be interesting to see. But I'm gotta say, Evan, this has been an incredibly green race compared to what we've seen sometimes at Talladega, and from last week when we had an incredibly yellow race at Daytona, where I think with the timer system we actually had with the Daytona 07 layout, one of our shortest lap races at Daytona 07 with crashes, as I think I just heard something going wrong behind this group, but I didn't. This is probably going to be one of our longest and fastest, because this has been incredibly green flag.
And you just have to hope that we're able to make it out to the end. It was a very poorly timed caution to end the opening stage, which it happened like 5 laps before the end of the stage, which is right inside of that do or die make or break window where if a yellow comes out, you're not going to be able to restart in time. That is not what we want to see happen towards the end of this. I kind of like when races get a little bit funky like this one. An untimely caution really throws a screwball into the strategy, and you got guys crunching the numbers. The majority of the driver radio chat that we're listening in on is guys counting down fuel. How many gallons do you have? How many gallons do I have? How many do you want to stay out for? Do you want to pit now, just get fuel? We're not going to make it. Or do you want to try to stretch it out and hope to get a yellow? That is what all of the drivers basically are talking with one another. So if Preet and Berger at least aren't going to be able to make it to the end because they pitted at lap number 63 or a little bit later than that, but they're not going to be able to make it to lap number 94, where does the ball fall back on? Does it fall back to Tanner Mann? Tanner Mann is in 7th position and 16 seconds off the race lead. The last time that number 5 Chevrolet came down to pit road was lap number 72. He only has to make it 22 laps, and I think that's a little bit more realistic.
It is, and I think it's very possible that could be the number he needs to hit, and we're going to have to see what these guys have got in the tank and what they've managed to save or pull in this race, because I mean, this lead pack, top 5 here, they could really back down here and relax a bit. They've got 16 seconds. They could just save a lot of fuel here and just widen that gap and give themselves some legroom.
Just want to kind of scroll through here, and I'm just keeping an eye on the fuel numbers for all of these drivers, just so we kind of have a good idea of the last time they were all down at the pit lane, so we don't feed anybody any incorrect information for the 72 and the 24 and company. As we noted earlier, they were last down pit road at lap 67. Cozy pitted at that lap too. Josh Ball in the 48, a little bit of a different strategy. His 48 machine was on pit road a little bit more recently at lap number 71. Daniel Holloway in the 26 also pitted at lap number 71, and Rittenauer pitted at lap number 71 as well. So first through third pitted at lap number 67, 4th through 5th at lap number 71, and 7th position at 72. Those are your fuel numbers. Who can stretch it? I don't think the top 3 have any chance, unless they know something that I do not. But I think it's going to be tight between 4th, 5th, and 6th position, Ball, Holloway, and Rittenauer, who need to stretch 23 laps on fuel, and Mann, who only needs to stretch 22 laps.
It is, and 22 laps, I think it's definitely on the possible side. Maybe a little lean, but 22 is very, very possible. That could be our number.
And just continuing to listen to the drivers on the radio, trying to figure out what their call is going to be. These guys up front are going to have to pit soon. They've been now 19 laps on the tank of gas they have aboard as they pit this time, and there you go. So they are going to come down to the pit lane. Spencer Preet is going to come down pit road, and so is the 77 Michael Cozy, tight to the line. I think they both got it wound up in time. Those drivers know each other very well. They're both rookies. Not at all surprised that they pitted together. So now the 24 and the 48 are going to go to the race lead. Berger has no more fuel on board than some of those other cars that you just saw drop down to the pit lane. There is a 4-lap difference in fuel between the 24 and the 48, who right now are well out in front of everybody else, basically in no man's land.
Yeah, they are, and that's going to be one for them to handle here, but it's going to cost them in this race, I think. Right now, it's going to be looking towards the likes of maybe Josh Ball and Daniel Holloway could do something in this one. I'm not sure what their numbers are. Berger and Ball are going to come down pit road, though. That's going to signal they can't make this one either. Oh, this is definitely going to make things a bit more exciting.
So the 24 pits now, all 3 of the cars that pitted at lap number 67 are down pit road. Josh Ball pitted at lap number 71. He's pitting, so is Daniel Holloway, and so is Ray Rittenauer. So none of what were just the top 6 to make it, and spinning onto pit road is Holloway. Spins it out, trying to get down to the pit lane. That'll probably be accompanied by a speeding penalty. Nonetheless, you're not going to win this race. Cannot make it to the end. So the ball has now rolled back to Tanner Mann, who needs to make it just 6 more laps as to the next time by. If he can get 22 laps on a fuel tank out of that car, he's in prime position to battle for the race win. He's got the 76 of Scott Warren fighting with him, and Jimmy Coleman. It is a 3-way fight up front.
It is, and well, that's going to definitely open things up in this one. As I'm not sure how this one could really angle out at the end here, Evan. We're looking at, what, 6 laps remaining now? This is who can last this one out. This is like the end of a Pocono race. This is not a Super Speedway finish would expect, but it's who's got... Maybe we'll see some cars run out on the racetrack in this, maybe.
And the 54 is a part of this battle for the race lead, but it is not for position. Brandon Cruz-Monsiváis is 1 lap down right now. In fact, the first driver 1 lap down. If he wants to get back to the lead lap, he needs a caution in the next 2 laps, or we're going to get inside of that go or go home less than 5 lap moment in this race, in which if a yellow comes out, it ends it, and he has no hopes of trying to get back into this thing. Just confirming with Scott Warren in the 76 machine that he's also on the same strategy as the 5. These drivers have been racing around each other for quite some time tonight. They've been working very well on for the restarts. Warren pitted at lap number 71. Coleman in the 78 pitted with Tanner Mann at lap number 72. So the car in the middle of these top 3 has 1 less lap of fuel than the drivers in front and behind him. But the 5, we talked about this earlier on, and I think it's valid to bring back up, Rachel. The 5 cannot save right now. The 76 can, and the 78 can. So Coleman may be in the best position.
Yeah, he could be, and that would be a huge coup for Jimmy Coleman in that 78 car. He could be in a position here to take a win, which would be absolutely massive for him there. I'd love to see that sort of thing happen. This is a fairy tale situation for some of these guys. None of these guys have really been in a position to win yet. A lot of these guys are rookies. It's going to be great to see someone new go to victory lane here and put themselves in a position to really contend once we get to the chase. That'd be fantastic.
And the good thing about racing on the sim as opposed to, what you're going to have to do when you're calculating fuel in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series is here in the sim, the drivers know how much fuel they have on board. They can take a look on their telemetry. They'll know exactly how many gallons of gas they have left, and it'll also give them a rough estimation of how many laps that's going to be able to make it for them to the end. The 76 has the least amount of fuel out at the top 3 right now, and he just came over the radio and said that he's going to be pitted, and I think Tanner Mann may be coming down pit road as well. The 5 is going to go to the apron. And that's an interesting move down in 3 and 4. Again, only the 3 lead cars in this pack are on the lead lap. The 54 and the 26 are lap down cars. None of them can make it. No, the 76 stays out. Jimmy Coleman is going to stay out as Mann and Warren come down pit road. He will come by this time. 3 laps to go. Caution, flag flies. Jimmy Coleman stays out. A caution comes out no more than 5 seconds later, and that's going to win him this race if he can hold on, which would be his first in Superspeedway Cup Series history.
It certainly would be. I'm going to have a quick look back now and see what has happened here in this race to bring out this last caution. I can't see anything happening on the racetrack. This could be...
48, Josh Ball.
48, oh, Josh Ball, problems.
Turn 4 looked like he got hooked by the 24, and that's an incident that could go either way. We've seen things like that bring out the yellow, but Rachel, we've also seen spins like that not bring out the caution. And I think that the stars just aligned tonight for Jimmy Coleman. That yellow came out, and he comes over there and says, oh my gosh, because he was just running third 5 seconds earlier. Those drivers who had just decided to come down to the pit lane, the 76 machine and the 5, if they decided to stay out, they would have taken over the race lead under caution, and running under yellow may have meant that they would have been able to make it a little bit further. But again, the 5 could not save fuel, so I think he was in a bad spot. The 76 was able to save fuel, but he had one last lap of fuel. Try saying that 5 times fast. So he was already that much further behind, and I thought that Coleman was going to be in the best position, and he's going to catch up to the pace car as we wait for the pace car actually to catch up to him. Assuming he has enough fuel to pace around for 2 more laps, he's set.
Could be. I mean, he's looking like he's coasting right now, so I think he's trying to save what he can at this point. He wants to try and make this
Put it in 4th gear and take your time. No rush.
That's why he's not stopping at all. He's keeping the car rolling to keep momentum. His engine's on and off. He's saving gas here. He's so close to this. This is so close for him. We have to see if he can make it here to the end. But
well, we always say
the engine.
Brandon, we always say if a caution comes out at the end, you win the race if you could make it back to the end. That's kind of just a provisional thing that we say to be correct. He hasn't officially won it. He's got to get back to the end. If he's having to save this much, that tells me that under green, he wouldn't have been able to make it back regardless. So he's trying to stretch it under caution. This car, though, is slowing down on the back straightaway. Again, Jimmy Coleman is looking for his first career Super Speedway Cup Series victory. And I don't think he's going to be able to make it. The field is very slow behind him. He is trying to keep going, and the pace car has gone around and gone on by, so he will speed back up. He is not out of fuel. I thought he was out because he was going very slow. He still has enough gas in the tank. White flag this time by. He needs to pace around. But I think it's incredible that if we stayed green and he's this tight, there was no way he was going to be able to make it on green. So he could have just easily have pitted with those other cars in front of him and gone back out. Took a gutsy call to stay out, and it might pay off for him. If not, the driver who has cycled up to second is Michael Cozy Jr., another driver who does not have a win in this series.
He certainly doesn't, and Spencer Preet, he does. He's hoping the two guys in front of him run out of gas here, and this could be an exciting one. So, I mean, hell, they could all run out of fuel. This could be that close, but Coleman has got gas. He's keeping his car in one piece. He just has to coast around and finish his lap, because if he can finish the lap, it's still given to him. So if he can make it back to the start-finish line, he's good here.
And I don't believe, as we head into the final 2.66 miles of this Stars Fell on Alabama 250, should take this opportunity as we pace to remind you that coverage of tonight's Super Speedway Cup Series is brought to you, as always, by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim from behind the wheel, on top of the pit box, or the spotter stand, JRT is your go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download today, or as we suggest, the full pro version online at joel-real-timing.com. But back to the point that I was making before that, I don't think the 77, even if he wanted to, which, to be quite honest, I know that everybody's here to have fun and be friendly with each other, and there's some drivers that like each other more than others, and that's very evident, Rachel, but even if the 77 wanted to, which I think he has no reason to at all, because if the 78 runs out, he's going to win this race and get into the playoffs. But even if that was a teammate behind Coleman, I don't think you're allowed to push him to the line. Nobody's allowed to help him get over the line.
No, you're not.
And race control reminded him that he has to maintain pace speed. He can't coast across the line with everybody behind him at 2 miles an hour. The 76 the 78 just trying to make it at a turn number 4.
Yeah, he's only got literally the tri-oval to go now, and I think he's hoping that start-finish line will be a Daytona one in the middle of the tri-oval rather than all the way up towards turn number 1. The car stopped on the apron there. Somebody else ran out of fuel behind them. That car was in the second pack last time I checked. But here we go. Through the tri-oval. Is this going to be a fairy tale end for Jimmy Coleman here, winning in the Super Speedway Cup Series, locking himself into the chase, a new first-time winner, and in the chase. Incredible.
Got enough gas. Incredible. And I don't know if he's going to have enough to come by and celebrate in some burnouts. I'm sure he would love to, but that is a first career win in this Super Speedway Cup Series for Jimmy Coleman. You can see some of the fellow drivers come around him, give him a congratulations as he slowly coasts on the inside. It appears that he's still got some in him and is not completely out yet. So you want to talk about hitting the nail on the head with the strategy. I took a look through the field just prior to the midway point as he starts to sputter, and I think he is now out of gas as he heads down the back straightaway. But at that halfway point, Rachel, I noted that there were a lot of different paths that drivers to take to get up front, and I think 9th and 10th position is a perfect look at that, and we'll talk more about everybody inside of the top 10 in a moment. But your pole sitter Rittenauer finishes 9th. I was talking about guys who started up front. So first is the epitome of that. And then somebody like Mike Thiel, who comes home right behind him and started 29th and ends up only one position behind Rittenauer, who started 28 spots in front of him. I was looking at that at the midway point, guys who either lost a lot or gained a lot. Coleman was right in the middle. He started in the middle of the pack. 16 is a nice neutral number. Obviously, you'd maybe want to qualify inside of the top 10, but it's not a terrible start. It's a neutral starting position. Worked his way through the strategy. We saw 1, then 2, then 3 groups of cars up front run out of fuel. Cars from his own group decided to pit. A little bit of luck with the timing, a lot of strategy with trying to stretch that fuel to the end. And Jimmy Coleman is going to be able to bring the 78 machine back to the start-finish line to celebrate this win.
He is, and that's fantastic from there. So really, really impressive to see him bring this one home. Fantastic to see that. Absolutely ecstatic to see a guy win who's not had a chance before. Just enough gas left in the tank, I think, for a donut.
One little spin. There you go.
8 donuts, yeah.
Well, he had perseverance to get it to the end, and he wanted to come back to get that one little spin. You can see the likes of Tiller behind him pushing him so he could bring it back across the start-finish line. Jimmy Coleman is now a winner for the first time in the Superspeedway Cup Series, and hopefully we'll be trackside with him to get the drive of the 78's reaction in just a minute. We take this opportunity to step aside from the Talladega Superspeedway. When we come back, we'll be trackside chatting with your top finishers. You're watching LSRTV's continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series on iRacing Live. Post-race for the Stars Fell on Alabama 250 in a moment.
Racing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Welcome back live to Lincoln, Alabama, and from the Talladega Superspeedway as the what has ended up the 6th race on this 15th season of Superspeedway Cup Series competition has now drawn to a close, which, incredibly enough, almost puts us at the halfway point in this regular season. It feels like we have just talking about how this thing was just getting underway But we are through 6 races of 13 on the regular season. We've got a first-time winner. Hoping that we could catch a word with Jimmy Coleman in just a moment. In the meantime, let's take a look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results for tonight. Stars fell on Alabama 250. Jimmy Coleman goes on to take the checkered flag, his first career win in the Superspeedway Cup Series. Michael Cozy Jr. career best finish coming home in second, and Spencer Preach in third. Those 2 rookies making up the other spots inside of the top 3. Andrew Berger with the 4th position tonight. Josh Ball, great night to come home in 5th spot. Ronnie Wofford is 6th position. Harry Tiller comes home 7th after getting knocked out of this once or twice by Chaperko. 8th position, Justin Levine. 9th is Ray Rittenau with the 2nd. Mike Thiel rounds out your top 10.
11th place tonight, Rod Flagg with Dwayne Cooper in 12th place. Dan Harrington 13th, Brandon Cruz-Montevaz in 14th, Daniel Holloway last car on the lead lap in 15th place. Behind them, Gary Champion, Glenn Hedrick, Andy Kessler, Sean McCarrick, and Dana Osborne in 20th.
About 4 more drivers are also stuck 1 lap down in the standings. That'll be 21st, Paul Serpent, 22nd, Larry Camp, Travis Brown, 23rd, and Scott Warren in 24th. Tanner Rand was 2 laps down in 25th. The rest of the drivers, though, out of this race that have retired. That includes Ramon Evans into P26, Brandon Chaperko, P27, Alex Hallinar, P28, and 29th, and Shotgun on the field, the number 1 machine of Chris Pasidi. So, still hanging tight, hoping we can chat with the driver of the 78 machine in a minute. That car is out of gas and is stranded out by turn number 1. In the meantime, Rachel Whiteford is trackside with your 2nd and 3rd place finishers tonight. 2 rookies to the series and 2 career bests for both of them. First with the driver of the 77.
Thank you, Evan. Yes, I'm sitting here with Michael Cozy Jr. Michael, did you think you'd be in this position anytime soon?
Yeah.
Was that your whole answer, or are you still overwhelmed?
Pretty much. I mean, I figured I had to get up there eventually. I mean, that's how I got to run 2 races up to this point. But, I mean, I've done this stuff before. I had to figure I'd get close at some point. But, yeah, it was pretty disappointing.
Certainly was. I'm sure you were hoping Jimmy Coleman would run out of fuel there on those final laps. But still so close. The right fuel strategy in the end there.
Everything worked out really, really well. It really sucks. Everything worked out absolutely perfect. And I don't know. I was working with Spencer there, and we got in and out of the pits really, really well. We got hooked up, and things just went on from there. I was surprised that we got out in front of those other 2 guys, and we caught some drafts from tail end of another group, and yeah, everything just worked out really well, and it sucks because the 78, he got up, he was way out in front of the pace car, and I felt like the amount he saved was enough to get him across the line while still in front of the pace car. So again, it's a bit disappointing to lose that way, and he was running out right across the line. So again, I felt like it should have been mine, but that's how it goes, I guess.
What happens in racing? Well, who makes it work for you guys there on the 27? 77 even.
Well, I don't have any sponsors. I made my own car, but I'd like to thank the 2 guys I raced with, Spencer Preet and Travis Brown. Spencer came home right behind me. We worked together all the way towards the end. So I want to thank him, and sucks Travis had some, I don't know what happened to him towards the end, but hopefully we'll find some good luck here and get a win that I think he's due for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Michael Cozy Jr. And next up, we'll have a chance to take a chat with Spencer Preet, who we do have right now. Spencer, 3rd place today. It's a good result. It's good points, especially.
Yeah. I mean, really good finish. Obviously, kind of disappointed. I definitely thought me and Cozy had the perfect strategy there for the end, and if that yellow didn't come out, it would have definitely been between us for the win, because I mean, obviously all those guys weren't going to be able to make it if it went green. So it's disappointing, but 3rd place is a good finish, and it's good in the points. And I mean, so far this season, I've been getting some pretty solid finishes. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's a chance I can make it into the chase on points if it comes to that. But I still want to get that win to feel a little more safe about it.
Certainly do. Well, hopefully you'll get that at some point in the very near future. Otherwise, good race from you guys today. Who helps you guys out with the 72?
I just want to give a shout out to my teammates, Michael Cozy Jr., Travis Brown, and thank you guys for putting on this broadcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Spencer Preet coming home in third. Evan?
And I'm still keeping an eye, and I think that number 78 is beached out by turn number 1. So we'll see if maybe we can chat with him between now and next week and maybe toss something up on the social channels, but it doesn't look like we're going to have an opportunity to chat with Jimmy Coleman. And, for a race that had relatively limited cautions compared to most races, I think the average, maybe 5 or 6, we ended up with 3 or 4 here tonight at the end of it all. When the yellows came out, it was really funky. It was right at 5 laps to go to end the stage, and it was right at 3 laps to go in this one, and to the point that Michael Cozy Jr. was making, his fuel call was better than Jimmy Coleman's. If this race stayed green, it was going to be between the 77 and the 72 to win this race, and 78 decided to stay out that 1 extra lap. I don't know if it was by design, a last-second decision, but the guys that he was drafted with pitted. He stayed out. A caution came out 5 seconds later. He just saved enough fuel under the yellow to be able to bridge himself to lap number 94. There's really no way to plan for that. So that's all in the moment. It's thinking on your toes and making it happen. And I think that it's really impressive to see a lot of new faces up front come the end of this one.
Absolutely. We saw just that today. It was a fantastic race, a very green race. And, well, hopefully it's some things to come.
And as we take an outlook on the calendar, we have next week off, believe it or not. So when we get things back away from the Daytona International Speedway for the 7th race on the season, it will not be until a little bit later on in the calendar on the 8th of September, as they give us a Friday evening off to give these drivers a little bit of a reset button, kind of the midway point as well in this championship. Rachel, feels like we've been just talking about how we're barely getting this thing underway. And it's 6 down and 7 to go until we hit the playoffs. Something else that I've really been enjoying through these races. We have had all different race winners in all the points paid races. Coleman joins Demergent, Passini, Chaburko, Monsivice, and Altmans on the list of winners. And even if we go back to count the non-points wins, Harry Tiller in Duel 2, Rod Flag in Duel 1, and Rodney Wofford in the shootout, even if we add those, still no repeat winners in season 15 so far.
There haven't been now, and it's going to be a great season so far from what I'm seeing here. I gotta wait for this one to pan out.
If what we've seen so far is any indication of how this championship is going to be, I highly encourage that you stick with us through the end of it here on Friday nights. Until we do it once more, though, that's going to wrap things up here tonight from Lincoln, Alabama. On behalf of the entire team at Live Sim Racing LLC, for the folks who make it happen, Topsod night in and night out, and for the crew behind the scenes, Laura Lawson, Daniel Lyon, and of course for everybody topside tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, Rachel Whiteford, and our producer Cisco Scaramuza, want to congratulate Jimmy Coleman for winning his first career Superspeedway Cup Series race, and we look forward to them returning in 2 weeks' time. This also wraps up our coverage on iRacing Live this week. You can make sure to check out our full upcoming broadcast schedule by joining us online at livesimracing.com, and you can get any late breaking information by keeping up to date with us on social media too as well. Make sure you don't miss anything. That's Twitter at LSRTV, and on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. So as we head out of Lincoln, Alabama, and head back to Daytona, it wraps up round number 6, and the stars fell on Alabama. 250 is behind us. We'll catch you in Daytona Beach, because that race and every race of this Superspeedway Cup Series can be found right here at LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Until then, good night.